Put on your thinking caps, everybody. We're going beyond the borderline.
Let's go. Thinking cap on.
Amen.
Okay. So here we are. So last week's episode, we ended in an interesting place. We talked about aliens for quite a while, as you know, if you tuned in. And then the discussion, well, talking of such things as aliens and, cosmic horror and existential dread and all these lovely things, we got onto an interesting topic towards the end of last episode, which might be the biggest question in the history of all time, really, which is, does free will exist? So that's what we're going to be discussing today. This might take the form of a two-part episode because there's a lot to talk about. But yeah, right off the bat, when you guys hear that question, does free will exist? What comes to mind? What's your immediate response without really thinking about it?
We're in a fucking simulation.
Free
Okay.
will versus determinism, I think, is the main thing, right? Is like,
Right.
is everything that you do predetermined, or is like, or do you have free will to make the choices that you make?
Yeah.
Or does it just appear that you have free will, but everything that you choose to do has already been chosen for you?
Well, here, I'll lay down the boundaries because this could go a million different ways. So we want to keep it constrained a little bit. So, okay, so I think we can probably all agree that there's not 100% free will in everything that you do. Like, there are some limits on pure unrestrained free will, right? Like social conditions and genetics and stuff like that play a factor in the things that you do in your life. So in terms of pure free will, it probably doesn't
disagree.
exist.
I think you still have a choice to do whatever you want, like whether.
Okay, but your choices are
conform-
influenced by nature versus nurture, right? Like, your choices down the line are going to be influenced by that. And
but
then,
at the end of the day, you still have a choice to accept them or not.
okay, let's just say there are probably some reasonable limits on free will. Okay, on the determinist side, when we speak of determinism, we'll be speaking of human consciousness, human actions, not everything that happens in the physical world, because that would be fatalism, and we're not talking about that. So basically the question is, are conscious human decisions of an everyday nature or of any nature made due to the free will of the individual making them or not?
I believe they are.
Okay, Phil, what do you have to say? What's your instinctive reaction?
The optimist in me thinks that there's kind of a happy medium. So I believe
You can't have a
there
happy
is-
medium.
Well, if you would let me,
we can't
speak,
have nice
I can-
things.
You can't have nice things.
Well, that's
Wait,
My
let him
iPhone is-
finish. Let him finish.
I mean,
but you
holy
either
smokes,
make your
boys.
choices or you don't make your choices.
Well, let's see what he has to say.
So let me reintroduce my argument. The optimist in me thinks that there is kind of you can make the argument that, one, you are deterministic in a way that you have kind of a timeline, or there's kind of like a clock in a sense where like you're gonna die, like say like you have 92 years to live, whatever. I think that's determined, but I think the path in which you reach that end can change via free will. So I think
Okay.
you're inevitably gonna get to the same B point, but you can
Well, yeah,
take
everyone's
B-
gonna die.
everyone's gonna
Okay.
die, but
But
I
if it-
think that
Except
it's my
Voldemort.
own choices. It's my own choices that get to that end,
Okay.
Alright, so
get to
okay.
that same end.
I have
Okay.
a question for you then, because you
Okay.
say like, you're born, okay, that's determined, and you die at the age of 92, that's determined, right? So like, let's just think about this for a second. What happens if you're driving in your car and you're supposed to make a right turn, but you decide to make that left turn instead, or whatever? Like you decide to go on a plane one day and that plane crashes and you die, like, you know, there's things outside of your like free will control that happen. So you can't believe that people have free will to make these choices if they have a deadline of like 92 years, because you make these decisions in a split second that will affect what time you're supposed to die at. Or like, you know, on maybe on a more unhappy note, like if someone decides to do drugs or smoke cigarettes, whatever they decide to do, that changes like what their end of life was supposed to be. Or and there's external factors that affect that as well. So either I think you can't have the happy in between. You either everything's predetermined because that person's gonna cut off into the other lane and hit your car and you're gonna die, or it's not gonna happen, or you have free will and somebody makes a mistake and something happens.
I don't know, but
Okay.
who's to say that was not a predetermined course of events?
Well, so correct me if I'm wrong, Cam, that's more fatalism than it is determinism, right?
Kind of, yeah. I mean, you're talking about events that are, when you talk about death like that, or like events in reality that are destined to happen, yeah, that goes more into the fatalism category, which I think we want to stay away from, because
And what
that
are the
just
main
gets too
differences
confusing.
between the two?
Well, we're just talking about pure human actions. So at the level of the consciousness,
Okay.
what are your actions determined by? Your own free will or determinism? And so, okay, so what I'm gonna do basically is, I think, play devil's advocate against myself, because so in doing research on this, I kind of broke my mind a little bit, because I'm gonna argue for determinism, even though I cannot yet reconcile my belief in determinism with my political or spiritual beliefs right now. So I don't know. My whole conceptual framework of the universe is kind of a wreck. But that's what I'm going to be doing, because I
Alright,
know
so tell me-
Connor's in the free will camp.
Tell me why you believe everything's predetermined.
Okay.
Well, first,
okay.
can you give a preface as to what kind of research you did and how you came to this conclusion?
Well, again, it's not a solid conclusion. It's just maybe what I tend towards more so. Like,
Sure.
well, okay, so the research was just looking shit up.
You can go on YouTube. You can go on YouTube and look up like free will
Yeah.
versus
Yeah.
determinism.
I mean,
and there's, like, a
it's
million
a
videos.
philosophical
Yeah.
argument. It's not like,
Yeah.
you know, it's not like I'm trying to prove like a scientific point, you know.
Mm.
Anyway, so in terms of determinism, in terms of free will being an illusion, let's say, one of the key proofs for determinism, and I touched on this a little bit last week, is the nature of the universe being cause and effect. So the effect being people's choices. If they make a choice, there must be a cause, right? I mean, whatever that might be. And that could
Mhm.
take the form of, like I also touched on last week, internal or external factors. And it can also take the form, like I mentioned at the beginning of this episode, of sociological and biological factors. So, for example, why does anyone do anything? Well, the determinists believe that you can rationally trace any given human action or human behavior to something that happened before, you know? So why did you eat? Well, the famous one is like, what did you have for breakfast? Why did you eat oatmeal in the morning? Is it because you wanted to and you made that pure free decision? Or is it because of a myriad of different causes that created that effect? One of the causes being, well, one, you were hungry. Your body needed food. Okay, so then you say, well, I have the free will to choose what to eat still. But I don't know, maybe not. Maybe you were raised in a household where you had oatmeal maybe 5 times out of the week, and eating it brings up these nostalgic feelings of childhood. You know, if your mother hadn't made oatmeal for you for 15 years, you wouldn't have picked that. You wouldn't have bought it at the store to even have it stocked in your household, right? So just stuff like that. So basically the concept of the
Okay,
physical
but then
universe being cause and effect, if you look at actions as effects, there has to be a cause, which means that pure free will existing in a vacuum without cause is impossible, right?
I think the whole point of free will though is taking in these cause and effects and making the decision in your head
Okay, yeah.
yourself what you're gonna do, because like as you said, like you're gonna eat a bowl of cereal 5 days a week, or a bowl of oatmeal 5 days a week. But what happens, you're going out for lunch and you're gonna have a big lunch. Well, you're like, okay, maybe I'll skip oatmeal today because I'm gonna have a really big lunch and I want to save some room for my big lunch. Like I guess you can say cause and effect, like there's an event happening where you're going to have this big lunch, but on the flippity flop, like you're making that decision yourself to not go and eat your cereal in the morning, right?
Well,
Like
so
I
that's
think
the
the
other
whole
thing.
point of free will is taking these events that happen around you, consuming that knowledge, and then making these informed decisions for yourself.
Yeah, okay, but what about, so the other major pillar, but it kind of connects to it, is the concept of wanting anything. Like, why do you want what you want? It's basically every choice you make, if you assume free will to exist, your defense for it would be, well, I wanted to do that. I chose to do that because I wanted it over the other choice, you know? But why do you want things? You know, you don't freely choose to want things. Like what your tastes in food, for example, or music, or art, or literature, or anything, are not freely made by yourself, like, and you can't. So I mean, the exercise to figure that out is try to
Well,
stop wanting something that you want, or try to start wanting something that you don't want. You
but what
can't
if I
consciously do it. It happens at the level of the subconscious. So that would lend credence to the idea that your subconscious is really what's controlling your mind and your body, not your conscious.
all right,
So
let's flip this a little bit, because you're talking like super broad here, and like I understand like and there's like the chemical reaction, whatever, like subconsciously, yeah, we have likes and dislikes when it comes to that sort of thing. But think about
but try to want something
I,
that you don't want. You can't freely do it.
why
So
would
you're
I do that?
controlled by your wants. You're controlled by your passions. You're controlled by these things which you have no control over, and they dictate your every move and everything you do in life.
Sure, I do. Like personally, I like Nike products. I like Nike clothes over Adidas.
But
Maybe
did
Nike's
you
better at
control
marketing.
yourself to do that? No.
I think Nike did a really good job of advertising and marketing
No,
and
no,
pushing
Connor,
good.
you're
Which
not.
means that it's not free will then.
No, you're not. You're
Well, it
not.
is though,
So
because I don't go
I,
out to the store every single day and buy a Nike shirt, right? I say, today I'm not gonna buy one, and then I'm gonna
that's different. No, that's different. Connor, I'm on your side for free will versus determinism, but you're not completely comprehending what Cam is saying. It's not about, I don't think control is the right word, Cam, because just because my subconscious may be quote unquote controlling my wants, my subconscious is still part of me. My subconscious is me, right? Everything that makes up my memories, my wants, my desires is all made up by my subconscious, my conscious mind. That is all, it all encompasses me. So when
Yeah.
I want something, to say that I have no control over what I want because my subconscious controls that, I don't think that's the right word to use, because once again, it's my subconscious. Just because I don't have a conscious ability to see that I can control my subconscious,
But that's what free will is. Free will
it's
is a
still
conscious choice. So if you don't have a conscious choice, like free will can be defined as the ability to choose differently than what you chose. So if you had an egg salad sandwich instead of a tuna sandwich, you allegedly have the ability to choose differently, right?
To
But you
differentiate.
didn't. And if you ran the experiment a million times and people didn't know they were being observed, they would have chosen the same thing a million times because
Well,
that's
so
what they
basically
want.
basically what you're saying though is that your subconscious is oppressing you to do the things that you want.
Not oppressing per se, but if we're thinking of free will as a conscious choice to do something over something else, you're presented with multiple options and you consciously choose one over the other, A rather than B, C, or D. If your subconscious is the one choosing it, which it is if you subscribe to this, if the theory that, well, the idea that your wants control you, which they definitely do, then free will doesn't exist.
I think this puts us down a larger rabbit hole of we don't yet fully comprehend the human mind, the human subconscious. So to say that everything is predetermined, I still cannot subscribe to, because
It's not necessarily
current
predetermined, like
our
100%.
current understanding,
But
our current
isn't-
understanding of free will is conscious. But if the subconscious is a part of me and I'm not fighting it because it is truly what I want, then I still see that as free will because it's part of me.
But it's biological factors and sociological factors that create your wants in your subconscious,
Well,
which
hold on.
then
I did
creates your reality.
I did agree with your point about nature versus nurture. I do think that there are different social and cultural influences that take some of our free will away because that's just part of human nature. I agree with that,
Yeah.
but I don't necessarily agree with the whole we have to be completely conscious to have free will in the case of our subconscious.
So what do you think about it? Because
Yo, I have a
it's
quick
really very
question.
simple
Maybe-
because
maybe we need to read a like maybe because like maybe I'm wrong on this, but my understanding of determinism was everything is already predetermined in your life, and your life, no matter what happens, nothing's gonna change in your life. It's just like the start point and the end point have already like it's already somewhere else. It's like if you wrote it down on a piece of paper.
no,
This is when it starts, this is what happens, and this is how it ends, right? Is that not what determinism is?
no, that's more like fatalism. Like that's kind of the distinction that I tried to draw at the beginning when I was
Mhm.
saying like, look, we're only going to analyze the level of conscious decisions. So that is more like fatalism, what you're talking about, that like your life is completely planned out. No matter what happens, you're destined to, well, you're fated. I mean, fatalism to follow the same route. Whereas determinism, in terms of a philosophical concept and being the opposite of free will, is talking about moral or conscious choices, or choices that free will proponents of
what?
free
Hold
will
on, Cam.
presume to be. Hold on.
I know I
Are
have to interject
completely
because
no. I'm not done defining it.
my brain just broke because I think I'm on your side now. My brain just broke
Oh my
because
God.
I just thought about it. Okay, so
Wait,
perfect
hold on.
example.
All determinism
Yeah.
is the idea that choices are completely determined by previous causes. That's it. So let's talk about
So
Okay.
it's not necessarily debunking free will.
No, it is. So what the distinction I tried to draw was just that we're not talking about your life being planned out for you necessarily,
Mhm.
like fatalism, but what it is
Your
in
choices on
any
your own.
particular choice, it's
It's the
not,
cause of from something else you've done.
yeah, is completely determined by other previous factors. Whereas
So it's like a
free
layering
will,
effect.
whereas free will kind of presumes
Isn't
to
that the-
exist in kind of a vacuum, which I just
Okay,
find-
now here's a theory.
okay.
And
we're
I'm
we're
not sure
untangling
how crazy
ourselves
this
here.
is going
We're
to be.
untangling ourselves.
So how about, like, I'll try to lean away from the fatalism argument, but how about like when you're born, right?
Mhm.
You're at like 0 decisions, like none.
Yeah.
And then how about as you become older, you have more and more decisions, meaning that it becomes more causal than it did yesterday.
Yeah.
What if as you age, it becomes more deterministic, purely based on probabilities?
Right. Yeah. I mean, that seems to check out. I mean, if there was a
Isn't that
machine
what-
that could accurately enough scan every single person's conscious and subconscious mind, it could probably, as they get older, predict more accurately what they're going to do, I guess, if that's kind of what you're getting at.
Isn't that the
Yeah,
whole
kind
thing of
of.
like you're looking like when you say determinism, essentially it is free will, but just you think about what you're gonna do. That's all
You-
determinism is, which is not
No,
like that's
no,
not
no.
that hard to argue
Okay,
for.
hold on. I have so here. Let me explain why my brain is broken now, and it's a perfect
I think
example.
Ryan got it. I think Ryan got it.
It's a perfect example. And so the example I'm going to give, I know each and every one of us has said this at least once in our lives, and it proves what Cam is talking about. Okay.
Okay.
The
Hit
way
me.
you feel about a woman, the way you feel about chocolate, the way you feel about your perfect movie. Can
Yep.
you explain exactly why you like those things? No,
Exactly.
you can't.
Exactly.
It's ineffable.
Yeah, you
When
can.
someone, no,
You're
Connor,
on it,
hold on a
man. You're
second.
on it, man.
When someone says, well, why do you like that person? Or why are you in love with that horrible person? I'm sorry, I can't explain it. It's out of my, I'm sorry. I'm not going to apologize for this
She's
because
got a
I
big
can't-
bunda.
I can't control why I like this person or why I like this thing. I just do. When I first look at it, I just like this
Wow.
thing.
Exactly.
You
So
can't
I'm pretty
explain
sure
that.
if you can't explain why you like a girl, then maybe you don't
No.
really like her.
Connor, you're looking at it too shallowly, though.
boy.
You can extrapolate that to every single choice, though.
Okay, another
well,
perfect example,
So
procrastination. Look at
determinism
this.
is the intangibility of life, essentially.
No, but okay, another
Oh,
perfect example is
sure.
procrastination. Let's say for example that you keep putting off doing a certain job or a certain work or a certain homework assignment, and it's not because you're tired, it's not because you want to play video games, it's just because you straight up don't want to do it, but you can't explain why you don't want to do it because you just don't want to do it. There's another perfect example.
Well, it's because
Yeah.
there's things that you would prefer doing with your time.
But why?
So
Why do
you
you
make-
prefer
But why
them?
why would you prefer doing them? There's
Because
always something
It
that can sit on top.
releases dopamine and endorphins in your brain when you do other things that you enjoy doing.
But why do you enjoy them? In the
Why do you
first
enjoy
place,
doing them?
Why does that thing allow for dopamine to hit your brain?
what's the cause to the effect,
'Cause
brother?
it makes you feel good.
But why does it make you feel good?
Is it
Beyond the
because
fact
you've
that
been
dopamine,
pre-programmed?
beyond the fact that dopamine makes you feel good because it's releasing chemicals into your brain. Why did
Okay.
that effect happen?
Okay,
Okay,
I'm gonna.
Well,
s-
it depends.
I agree
it
with all
depends
of you
on
now.
what it is that it depends
because-
on what it is that you're doing. Like if I'm exercising, it's releasing endorphins and dopamine because I'm working out. If I'm watching a comedy, it's because I'm laughing. You know, like it just depends on what you're doing that these things are happening.
But why,
Um,
when you're watching a comedy, why did you find that particular comedy funny?
yeah. Okay, guys, I'm gonna
well,
introduce a new
because they said a
idea.
funny joke.
Okay,
here's
But why
like-
was the joke funny?
okay, we're going in circles
Well,
now.
I didn't tell the joke, so I don't know what joke you're asking me about. I'll tell
Okay,
you if you
I just
give me a
want to say
joke.
just the word dopamine and what it means to the human body is like deterministic in nature because it's the reward mechanism.
Yeah,
Well, why do you
Mhm.
like that? It's rewarding you for what you're doing. So
it's
that
the effect.
that chemical in and of itself is deterministic in
Right,
nature.
but what we're
because
but we're
it's
say-
gonna prove to you having the same behavior and you doing the same thing. And
Yeah.
But yeah, but what we're saying is that you don't get that reward effect unless you like the thing that would give you that reward effect, right?
Yeah,
So
exactly.
what
Okay, so
explains for
listen.
liking that?
Let me
Yeah, but
introduce a new
sometimes-
idea.
Sometimes I have to choose things that I don't like to do over things that I like to do.
Well, of
Okay,
course you
so
have to
then
do
is
that.
dopamine a placebo
that's-
then?
That's your free will.
No, that's
say-
your subconscious realizing that sometimes you have to make sacrifices.
Okay, can I please interrupt because we're going in circles and
Sure.
nothing's getting done here. So what I said at the beginning of I wasn't able to reconcile my political and spiritual beliefs with the belief in determinism at this stage in the game is because, so maybe this will help explain the argument a little bit. So determinism in, let's say, a real world application would be something like the idea that you can't hold mentally ill people responsible for all their decisions, for example, or drunk people responsible for all their decisions, or addicts, drug addicts, responsible for all their decisions, because basically taking away the concept of free will, right? So it's like these people, based on their subconscious and the biological and sociological factors, they didn't have a choice to stop, let's say. So that's where me, as like more of like a conservative, is like, shit, like what does this do to the idea of responsibility?
Does that
right?
mean, does that
What
mean
does it
that
do to the
murderers,
idea of what's
does
that?
that
Well,
mean
hold on.
murderers
So
should be
yeah.
reprehended for killing people
So
because it
hold
was predetermined it wasn't their choice
Well,
to
so
kill?
I'll give you an
Well-
example. I'll give you an example. So there was a guy, oh fuck, I forget when and where. Let's say it's in the early 2000s, I'm pretty sure. But he randomly,
Oh, I saw that video.
right, yeah. So he randomly developed pedophilic urges out of nowhere as like a teacher, I think he was like a school teacher. And basically I think he was arrested, but anyway, they ended up doing a scan of his brain and found a massive tumor growing in the section of the brain that controlled sexual impulses and desires and stuff. And when it was removed, his urges were completely gone. So then it's like, shit, wow, like, is that hard, real evidence of the lack of free will? And what do you do with that person? I mean, should they be held responsible? Are they guilty or not, you know? And so you can say the same thing for people being drunk. I mean, that's why
Wait,
certain
Well,
legal
hold on. No,
defenses-
I
this is
need to fight on the other side of the
did-
coin now here.
Did
because
he,
now-
did he proceed with those actions?
What do you mean?
Well, like you said, like you had,
I don't know the details of the case, but
because
the
Okay,
fact
hold
of the
on.
matter is,
I need to fight on the other side of the coin now here, because when you brought up alcohol, it made me think to fight for arguments in favor of free will. So if we go back to your earlier point about how we have no control over our desire, our base desire and wants, because that is dictated by our subconscious, right?
yeah,
But whenever we start to drink and we get drunk and our inhibitions start to be, we start to get inebriated. The common adage is, oh, I didn't mean to do that. It was drunk. I would never have done that if I was drunk. So what that
If I was
tells me is
sober.
what that tells me is our consciousness, like our active consciousness, is a safeguard to prevent us from acting upon our base desires. So in that respect,
Yeah,
I think
yeah,
we
in
do
many
have free
ways.
will. So in that respect, I think we do have free will because our consciousness acts as the shield to prevent us from letting the floodgates loose on our subconscious.
right.
Because
Well,
I feel
that's
like
the best argument for free will, and I think it was Jordan Peterson that was talking about this. I think that's probably the best argument for free will, is that why do we have consciousness in the first place if consciousness isn't a vehicle for free will?
right. So yeah. So
Because I mean, what else would it be? I mean, that's what we are
Because-
as conscious beings, right? We have agency, or we presume to have agency. Now
because
I don't know.
because
but
if we
yeah.
didn't have free will, alcohol and drugs would have no effect because we would just act the way that we are because because by the argument of determinists, we're always just going to do what we want to do. But when you throw things like alcohol in the mix, we don't do things that we just want to do unless we're inebriated, right?
Yeah. But basically the concept of responsibility. So what I came to was that if we fully embraced determinism, even though it may be more true than free will, it could basically destroy our entire society, because all these things that we hold up, I mean, the rule of law, guilt, praise as well, the other side of the coin of guilt. I mean, if everything's deterministic and, you know, some people, not only their negative behavior can be attributed to determinism, but their positive behavior as well. So, you know, if they excelled academically, suddenly they're not worthy of praise because, well, it wasn't your free will that made you that way, right?
Mhm.
So
Yeah.
it basically has the capacity to completely destroy our entire society, which comes to the point that it's probably better to act as if free will does exist, even if you think it doesn't,
So
which kind of
living in-
connects back to another idea.
It's
So
like
you're
glass
saying-
half
you're
full
saying-
versus glass half empty sort of thing, right? Like that's essentially what it is.
Yeah. Well, like, have
Will
you
we
heard of
ever know-
Pascal's wager? It's like
Yes, I have.
a concept that, like, basically he's thinking about if God exists or if heaven and hell exists, and he's like, okay, well, the wager idea being, it's probably best to act as if God did exist, you know, because if you don't, then, well, you're going to hell. If you still act as if he exists and he doesn't exist, well, then you're fine. if you act as if he exists and he does exist, well, then you're fine again. So yeah, it's the same thing, I guess. And maybe you could see free will and God as somewhat of the same idea. But yeah, even though I believe that we're probably more deterministic than we like to believe, we should still uphold the idea of free will, because without it, there's no responsibility.
No,
And
my brain got a little repaired after the alcohol and consciousness argument. Like I'm still willing to accept some of the points you made about determinism. Like there's definitely some interesting questions there, like the never ending, well, why did you want that? Or why did you do that? Right? Like that's still that never ending trail of questioning is still there, and it bothers me. But at the same time, the other argument on the other side of the fence about, your consciousness acting as that gateway, that shield preventing you from acting on all your base desires is also there. So I feel like I'm stuck between a rock and a hard place on this argument.
okay, on the next, so we have about 5 minutes left. In the next episode, I have some neuroscientific proof of determinism for you that
Ew.
might break down that barrier that you said right there, Ryan.
Okay.
Which is it's pretty creepy, actually. It's not very. It does not make you comfortable.
I was already uncomfortable.
I'm kind of excited for that, but before we move on, I guess I had a question, and maybe it's going back to us going in circles and stuff like that. But if you have a decision to make between like going to work and doing work, or not going to work and going and sitting on a beach or going on a vacation or something like that, but you decide to work not because you want to, because obviously you want to go sit on a beach and not go on vacation, but you made the decision to go to work instead. Like isn't that your free will deciding? Because obviously you'd want to go do the latter, you'd want to go and vacation, but you still decide to go to work instead.
Well, that's my argument I suggested, Connor, about your consciousness acting like that barrier. Yeah, your base desire is you want to go on that vacation, but your consciousness is preventing you from doing that because your consciousness knows, no, I have obligations that I need to adhere to.
Well, it could still be then a subconscious balance of wants, because I mean, if you do anything, even the thing that seems less appealing, you're still doing it because you want to, for financial reasons or otherwise. So it's not clear that you're making a conscious decision still. You know what I mean? Like you have to look at it at those two levels. Like it's not really clear where the consciousness comes in, and how do you know for sure that you are consciously making a decision, or if your consciousness is just the horse that the subconscious is controlling, is riding. You know what I mean?
But is like the subconscious is part of your consciousness, right? It's like your inner self.
But you can control it.
Sure,
which
you
makes
can.
it very different.
But that goes down back to my argument of, I think control is the wrong word here, because I don't think your subconscious is something that you can control.
But free will is control, which means that if you're subconscious, but you just proved it. If free will is control, which it is, and the subconscious mind controlling you, we take that to be true, then free will can't exist.
So I think it's another issue of, once again, like, we don't fully comprehend the human mind. I think we're looking at this too much on a micro perspective, and we're not
I think that's too dismissive, dude. I think we know a lot more.
I think we're missing a piece to fully understand the larger picture. I don't think we have the capability to understand it yet.
Okay. Well,
Yeah,
like I
agree.
said, we'll get into some more proof in the next episode.
Yeah, but you're talking about determinism the whole time. You could essentially just flip around to say for free will as well, right? Like, I know you said like these are things that your subconscious influences, but your subconscious is part of your free will, like, right? It decides what you
No,
like.
it's literally not, though, because that's not free. You don't have control over it, so it's not free.
Well,
By
you do.
definition, you don't control your subconscious. Like, you simply do not.
Your subconscious
Well,
is like
it's
like
uncontrollable.
It's like the things I liked when I was a kid, I don't like it anymore, and that's not because like, for instance, when I was a kid, I used to be fat. I'd drink 3 liters of milk, or 2 liters of. Me and my brother would drink 2.5, 3 liters of milk after school every day. I loved milk, and then I decided I made the choice. I was like,
No, but
listen,
Connor, I know for a fact you cannot pinpoint the very second day and time when you made that decision that I no longer want to drink milk like that. You
yes, I
cannot.
do.
No, you cannot. I'm sorry, Connor. You
Yes, I
cannot.
do. Why? Like,
Dude, you're
I
arguing against like Freud here, though, basically. Like, I mean, like
I decided, like,
the subconscious mind is not controllable.
one day I stood, like, I knew the whole time I'm drinking milk, and I'm still a big boy because I'm drinking milk. And I was like, listen, I need to lose some weight. I'm cutting milk out, and I started losing weight. And I was like, hey, perfect.
Okay, but why did you
But
want to
why'd
lose
you want to
weight?
lose weight? Boom. Okay, let's
Because
end it
it's
here,
fucking
boys. Let's end it
bad.
here. Let's end it here.
Fucking
Cut it off.
bad.
Cut it off.
Yeah.
Okay, guys,
So
we'll
yeah,
come back
tune
to
in-
this in the
tune in on
next episode.
Friday. Yeah, tune in Friday for part 2 of why I stopped being fat.
Jeez.
That's the
We'll talk
title, I
more
think.
about-
I
We'll
think
talk
that's the
more
title.
about free will, determinism, get into some neurological stuff, I guess. And
Oh yeah.
remember, everybody, take care and brush your hair.